Did you know that there's never been a national study on the availability of water? So this is a huge issue. The water technology space in general, there hasn't been a whole lot of innovation. The last shower that was created was in 1810. Experts know in Canada that water is deteriorating and there's less of it, but we just don't know at what rate. Our challenge is that we don't have water when we need it, where we need it, at the right quality that we need it. One of the questions that a lot of people ask us, what if, I don't know, like, I don't do this, but what if someone supposedly pees in the shower? What happens?
None of us do that. What do you mean?
No one does that. I mean, nobody.
How long was your shower this morning? Did you stop to think about where that water... Wait, never mind. Most of us are working from home, so I know you just rolled out of bed and just logged into work. It's okay. Your secret's safe with us. Welcome to the Generation Hustle Podcast, a show that explores the world of business, entrepreneurship, and culture, all centered around the millennial. I'm your co-host, Sherrison, alongside my good friend Amin, and today we're exploring another important topic, water scarcity. Episode 33 is with Alisha McFetridge, CEO and co-founder of RainStick Shower. It's easy to dismiss water scarcity, seeing as how 70% of our planet is water. However, what you might not know is that fresh water, the kind that you drink and bathe in, is really rare. In fact, only 3% of the world's water is fresh water, and 2/3 of that is tucked away, unavailable for use. Water demand is projected to grow by 30% over the next 30 years, as the world's population is expected to grow by more than 2 billion people by 2050. That's an incredible amount of stress on freshwater resources and infrastructures in society. This is where RainStick Shower hopes to challenge the status quo. Their mission is to combat climate change and build a circular economy in Canada by transforming how we use water. Their products saves 80% more water and energy by reusing, recirculating, and filtering water before it is released back into the ecosystem, resulting in reduced carbon emissions and lower household costs. All this while not sacrificing water pressure or cleanliness. If you're wondering how this is possible, you're not alone. We sit down with Alisha as she explains how she came up with the idea of a recirculating shower, the engineering behind the shower, and the importance of addressing the global water supply. This was an incredibly informative conversation, so sit back, relax, and remember, drink 8 glasses of water today. We're super excited to have you here to talk about RainStick. Let's dive into the topic and dive into the company itself. Can you tell us about RainStick and kind of how you came up with this idea? I was reading up into it. The idea of a recirculating shower. And that was something that it sounds cool and sounds really environmentally friendly and sustainable. But I'm sure there's a lot of people that were like, I don't know how I feel about reusing my water. But yeah, so talk to us about RainStick.
Yeah, totally. So, I mean, it is very much that. It's a recirculating shower. I think it's something that a lot of people probably think about. You know, it's something that we see how much water literally touches our skin for a second as we're showering and then just goes right down the drain. And I know for myself, I often thought about that. A lot of people don't realize, but Canada has a desert. And that desert is on the west coast of Canada in the Okanagan Valley, and it's where I grew up. And so, you know, growing up in an area like the Okanagan, I thought about it a bit. I mean, in Canada, we have quite a bit of water, but we don't have it where and when we need it. And in the Okanagan, that's the case. And so I always thought about, okay, every time I shower, it seems really wasteful. It's something that I can identify with, but I don't really know what the solution is or what I would do in that situation. And, you know, tried low flow, and someone with long hair, I always felt like shampoo would barely wash out of my hair. And so I was always conflicted by feeling a little bit guilty, but at the same time, not really sure what the answer was. So, and, you know, on my end, I actually ended up kind of doing some traveling when I was quite young. I ended up then working for some NGOs. I went to school for business, majored in sustainability. I kind of wanted to do something, but I wasn't really sure what it was. But it wasn't until I actually went and traveled and worked in more of a developing context overseas. And one of the main challenges that we would constantly face is water. And water was a huge challenge because it would, you know, force people to live a different lifestyle than they would want to. I mean, it would interfere with school because you'd have to go and collect water. It would interfere with health, depending on the quality. And then really it would take over the majority of some of the daily tasks, because that's what you had to go do. You had to go and collect water. And so in that, trying to figure out, solutions around water management, and then coming back to Canada and realizing we have our own challenges right here in Canada, except it's different. It's just so much water waste, and I would extend that to North America. And so that's kind of how RainStick, the idea of it. And I mean, I ended up going on and studying my master's climate change. I wanted to do something more, but it was really from that point where I said something needs to happen and break in North America. The idea of a recirculating shower has always kind of been there, but it's trying to figure out how to actualize it. I mean, we started with a lot of crazy ideas. And I think that the biggest thing for people, and we can talk more about this, is like, how do people feel with sustainable products? How do people feel with this idea of a recirculating shower? And, how we've been able to, I guess, educate people on that has been one of the things that make RainStick fun, but also probably one of our greatest challenges. So we can certainly touch on that. But I'm going through a lot of different areas, but in short, what I'll say, so what is RainStick? It is a recirculating shower. It's a high pressure shower system. And so when I say high pressure, I mean, it's not low flow. It's more than what you'd get with a traditional shower pressure. The way that we're able to increase the pressure is through recirculation and through filtration. So it makes water clean and clear. And so as a result of RainStick, a user now saves, $500 to $700 per year because you're saving 80% energy in water.
I'm not sure how much you can kind of divulge on the details at all, but we want to understand kind of a little bit of the science there as well. Like, how does it actually recirculate it? What's the filtration process like? Like, how is that working, at least to the average consumer who doesn't have a background in sustainability and things like that?
Yeah, totally. I mean, so first off, I'll say for myself, I'm a big picture thinker. I'm someone who, is more science, like, that's where, so more of the trying to figure out how to get to the bottom and strategizing, that's my skill set. I don't have an engineering skill set. And so it was certainly something that I've really had to focus in on and become better at over the years. When we first started RainStick, I had this, plastic prototype. And then, the next iteration was a little bit of a better plastic, and it was in my spare bedroom. And then the next one was, a Tin Man. And then, that led to the next iteration. So there's been a lot of iterations of RainStick over the last few years. But where we've been able to get to today is essentially a system. So think about RainStick less of like your typical shower hardware. Rather, think about RainStick like an appliance. Okay, so that's the first thing I'll say about the technology. It is a system, and the way that it works, there's 2 times that RainStick's installed, and that's during new construction and a bathroom renovation. And the way that RainStick works is it essentially is hooked up on the bathroom wall, and it takes in water, about 5 liters of water, of grid supplied water, and is pumped through, so it's recirculated in the closed loop. And as it's recirculated, it passes by our filtration component. So it makes sure that water is, constantly safe for the user. But it also goes through our heating component. So it just incrementally boosts water about 2 to 3 degrees to make sure that water stays comfortable for the user. And so if you're having a shower for 30 minutes, it's still comfortable. It's still hot water. And that was one of the kind of the big pieces, because we realized that it loses a couple degrees every time it actually recirculates in the system. So as a result of that, as soon as the user's done, the water goes down the drain as it normally would. So we see, future products coming up with ways to dispose of that and get rid of that. But every user has a unique set of water. So let's just say, Joey showers and then Sally showers after. They both have their own water. They're not sharing each other's water. One of the questions that a lot of people ask us is, how clean is the water? What if, I don't know, I don't do this, but what if someone supposedly pees in the shower? What happens? And so even for us,
none of us do that. What do you mean?
No one does that. I mean, nobody. But it's like something that everyone thinks about. They think about recirculating. They think about, what if someone pees in the shower? What if? And so all of these things we've really had to think about through the development process and kind of how it fits in. And what I will say to that is, although we don't recommend peeing in the shower, technically the filtration makes the water clean and still makes the water clear. And so there aren't any serious issues with that.
Okay, so I want to go back to some of the technical points of that you mentioned there. So for the average consumer, like if I just want this in my home, what are the requirements that I need to have in place in order to install this in my house?
Yeah. So we are finding users when they're going through either that bathroom renovation or that new construction. So during those two times,
Okay.
And when we think about what's required of RainStick, it's very simple or similar to a traditional bathroom install. What is different is RainStick. So RainStick now comes as an appliance, comes as a system. So there aren't a whole bunch of different parts that are required by the user. So someone that's handy could, hook in RainStick. The difference is there's now an electrical component, and that's because there is a heater in the system. So you do need an electrician, we recommend, to help with that install process. All the parts, of course, are IP rated and they're safety rated, but there is that's the only additional requirement that someone would need.
And you mentioned this as well, so that like you didn't have an engineering background, so you needed to kind of understand that side of it. How was that process for you? Like, did you have any trouble there while you were going through these iterations?
Totally, yeah. I think that it makes you realize that you can do a lot more than you think you can.
Mm-hmm.
And but I think also one of the benefits of not coming from a traditional engineering background is that you think about problems in a different way. You don't think about, I think the water technology space in general is pretty linear, and I would say there hasn't been a whole lot of innovation. I mean, we think about showering, and the last shower that was created was in 1810. The only innovation has been, low flow that's been adapting. Like there's been no innovation when it comes to this. And so one of the benefits I would say is I challenged, myself and my partner, Sean, we've challenged the whole process from the very beginning, and we've come, I would say, a lot further. We've also put people first. We've put the end user first and said, well, what do they want? What do they want it to look like? We've talked to a lot of folks. It's not, engineers that are creating this. It's people that are creating for other people with a huge focus on design and user experience. And so in the parts where I haven't really been able to figure it out, I mean, I've become really good at asking for help, I think, through this process. We've been really lucky to have a lot of really incredible people at, Mars, which is an accelerator in Toronto, at, Climate Ventures in Toronto, and now Communitech, because we've just made the move out to the Waterloo area with COVID. And it's really these folks that have really good insight. They know who to ask and who to talk to. They know how to challenge us. And I would say that's kind of one of the biggest things. And the last thing I'll say to this is really knowing what you're good at and what you're not good at. And so challenging yourself, you can do a lot more than you think you can, but also like outsourcing and saying, okay, like I need an engineer to come in and help that knows this, and finding those people. And so I think it's been really helpful, but we've definitely struggled a lot through the process. Starting business is so hard.
Yeah, I think a lot of people underestimate the amount of time, the amount of issues that you're going to face, especially when it's a startup or when especially with your space, it's completely new in terms of a thinking process for a lot of consumers. And so I guess the education process takes much longer in terms of making sure, consumers can adapt to that. But I also feel like you guys are going to benefit with, I say, new home owners that are coming in, millennials and younger, who obviously have a huge affiliation with making sure, we have an environmental impact and making sure that we're conservative in those kind of cases. So I think you guys are spot on in terms of your growth, and you guys have, entered the market, I guess, at the right time. I think business is also about timing and a bit of luck as well here and there.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think that just as you mentioned, it's beer o'clock somewhere. Someone just brought that to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think exactly as you mentioned, it's interesting. We're finding even in getting into the market, there's a huge people and millennials, and I would say the next generation under, that are signing up to the wait list, saying, how do I get my hands on a RainStick? Can I be your early adopter? We're also seeing kind of this old school, linear, I would say more old school approach. And so we're kind of challenged in a lot of different ways, but very exciting. And we've been able to really push into new areas with RainStick, which has been exciting.
You approach that statement very cautiously. So I like that. It brought me to my next point here, because obviously environmentally friendly initiatives is kind of top of mind for our generation and the one after us. So we're part of the millennials. And so with that in mind, it's hard to kind of garner support in this area when you have to change kind of deep rooted consumer sentiments. And you touched on it already, like in terms of if people pee in the shower, like how do you kind of explain to them that the water is clean and things like that. So can you talk to some of the challenges that you face in building brand awareness in this space, and how you've kind of adapted to overcoming that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a good question. I think people generally believe when it comes to sustainability, I'll say the first thing is sustainability sells. Okay. People are excited about sustainability, for brand awareness, I should say. Right. But when it actually comes down to pulling the trigger and purchasing, it's a totally different story. Yeah. So right. Sustainability helps get the word out, but people in the end of the day, this is what we've found, and this is just our experience that I'm talking to, but people at the end of the day, they care about them, they care about experience. And so people have a general feeling that sustainable products do not work as well as the status quo. They're more expensive and they don't work as well. And so how do you change that? How do you educate people and get people excited? I mean, people have told us, even in our journey, one of the most challenging aspects of what we're working on is not just that we're selling a product, is that we're having to educate people, and that takes time. I'm finding there's a lot less education that's required for the younger generation. Or people that have kids or they have families and they're all in because they care about future generations and they want to make the right decisions. But for us, certainly there's been a lot of education. We're seeing really innovative jurisdictions. We're seeing innovative countries that we're starting to look to that are ready. They're right on board. They're ready to buy, RainStick recirculating showers. And we're seeing others that are quite conservative. But I think the thing for us, brand awareness, education, has been a huge part of kind of what we've been doing.
So that's a great point, because I wanted to understand kind of where you're getting your interest from, because one of the first things that I thought of when I saw your business model was this can change hotels and lodging areas like that significantly in terms of costs and expenses. And to your point about consumer sentiments, it's very true. Like everyone's quick to applaud environmentally friendly businesses and resources, but at the end of the day, they pick convenience and cost over everything else, right? And that's just how humans are. So where are you getting more of your interest in terms of your product? You already mentioned kind of millennial generation, but in terms of the consumer segmentation.
Yeah, totally. So exactly as you mentioned, when it comes to commercial projects, we found hotels to be really interested because of that monetary savings element. Mm-hmm. That's what we believe. There is that, they are watching over their budgets. They are paying their budgets. They're looking for ways to cut costs, particularly with this hard year that we've had. Right. But they're also seeing this environmental aspect that people are asking for. They want it. And so how do they push wellness and environmental sustainability, but at the same time cut costs? And so hotels are right up there. They're a fantastic user group for RainStick. We're also seeing developers, but more specifically developers that have a net zero focus. And the reason why is because it's typically they build and then they leave. Okay. And so they're looking to build for the least square footage. And so how do you align with developers that really have that LEED certification or that longer term mindset. And so given that in the commercial space, that's kind of yielded some of the success that we've seen. But really, we're seeing a lot of success with consumers. People are ready for a product like this, but it's a certain target audience. It's those who are typically environmentally conscious. Typically, they already have some tech in their home, and so they already have that smart thermostat. They maybe have looked into an electric vehicle in the past. Maybe they decided to get it or not to get it. They're interested in that next tech decision and trying to figure out where that is going to be and how it aligns with their values. It's really that individual that we found has been really interested in a product like RainStick.
Is RainStick going to be, is there the capability to incorporate to that kind of technology, say an Alexa or something like that?
Yeah, exactly. So RainStick, so I'll say that one of the big things that we noticed when we went through the product design process with RainStick is at the beginning we were thinking, okay, smart this, smart that, it'll be great. And we started talking to people and we quickly realized that people don't want a lot of tech in the bathroom. It's the sacred space. They, I don't know how it is for you guys, but I know for me, that's my place to de-stress and to relax. And, I want it to be straightforward and easy. And so
I just need speakers and music. That's all.
Yeah, exactly.
I have no tech in there either. It's just simple.
Yeah, totally. You want it to be simple. And a lot of people are telling us the same thing. And so we're like, you know what? Let's take a few steps back here. And instead, let's build a system that does incorporate tech. Because something that's really interesting to us is the ability to capture water savings. So how much water and energy has been saved. How much money you're saving. But something that's easy and intuitive to use. And so it is Wi-Fi enabled. There is an easy to use app, and it notifies the user essentially how much water they're saving, how much money they're saving, and then also if anything needs to be changed out in the system. For example, like descaler. So if a descaler if your system needs to be descaled, the application will tell you. But from the actual usage perspective, it's pretty easy. We see in the future aligning with like Alexas, with the Google Homes. I think that would be super cool. That'll be kind of the next model that's available for sure.
That's sweet. I mean, this is like kind of a perfect segue to the next question here. So obviously you two are very motivated by obviously the problem of managing our water supply. So I thought I'd maybe share a story because one on the whole recirculating thing. So I went on this trip in Peru, I think it's 2 years ago. And while on the trip, we went through Machu Picchu and we interacted with natives there. And so, they pretty much just use the rivers to take showers and clean themselves. And I asked one of the lead kind of tour individuals, say, do you guys use showers or any of that stuff? They're like, no, we use our land and we kind of recycle what we have. And so when that kind of opened my mind up to the amount of waste as our, I guess, consumer or privileged lives kind of go through. And so can you walk us through, that just made me kind of want to ask this question, can you walk us through the current issues across North America as it pertains to our fresh water supply?
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's a good story in that I think that it's incredible when you go and travel and you meet other folks, the way that people live with water every day. And, you compare it against the way that we live with water in North America, and you realize we do just have as many challenges. Our challenges are just different. And I think it's interesting. I know Canada specifically. Did you know that there's never been a national study on the availability of water? The WWF is now putting something like that together. So we talk about Canada has so much water, and people have done, province-wide, they've done studies on the watersheds, but there's never been a national study. And so this is a huge issue. Yeah, we can't claim all of these things. We know, experts know in Canada that water is deteriorating and there's less of it, but we just don't know at what rate. We know that the quality is decreasing. We just don't know. We don't have the answers, and it's because we haven't been able to put in the right study and research to do it. And so from that perspective, we know that Canada does have a lot of water. We know that in North America, statewide, there's typically a varied amount of water. I mean, you can look at the water projections over the next few years, and you'll see that, if you look at the Midwest and the California, you can see that they've had a lot of water issues. But I would say overall in North America, our challenge is that we don't have water when we need it, where we need it, at the right quality that we need it. And I mean, you can talk about in Canada, there's Indigenous communities that don't have quality water where and when they need it. And so they're still on, boiling restrictions, which is absolutely absurd. It's crazy. And we need to be doing more. But I would say, so that's one level of it. It's just the variable level quality and accessibility of water that needs to be addressed. But I would say the other challenge is that this issue of pricing water. And, it is water. And I think we could get into a whole kind of tangent discussion about should you privatize water? Should you keep it public? That's, a whole other discussion, and I won't, go into that. But I do think that we need to be really careful about how water is priced. Yeah. But it does need to be priced effectively, and that's always a challenge, so people appreciate how much is being used. And I don't think we're doing a good job of that in North America at this time.
Right. And so, I mean, sorry to kind of put this on you, but my kind of next question was around the pricing of water. So in terms, I'm not going to name names, but obviously large companies usually purchase water at a significantly low rate from, I guess it's municipalities that they purchase it from. And so, they sell it for, I don't know, like a 400x premium to consumers just for, the convenience of it being bottled. So like, what are your thoughts on the water bottling industry as a whole, I guess you can say? And then, maybe let's demystify some of the issues around, I guess, that pricing issue. And at what stage do you think consumers can be kind of deterred and kind of almost realize like, hey, we're wasting water?
Well, I would say, so people have done studies about this. They can't figure out, and I think it's one of the most challenging things is water a private good or is it a public good? That's the first question, because I think that if it's privatized, there's a lot of efficiency for water, but then there's also winners and losers. And so what is the most effective way of water? And I by no means, I have my opinion about things, but I think that there's a lot of really smart people in the world, and they're really working hard on this and trying to figure out what the future of water looks like. I mean, if we look at, for the first time, California, as of December, started trading water futures, which is, something that's never been done, but they're doing that with gold, and they're doing that with resources. And now they're starting to do this with water because they're realizing water is a finite resource. And we don't know the future of what's going to, happen. And so I think as it relates to private companies and kind of their role in all of this, I think there's challenges with that for sure. Evidently, they, probably shouldn't be doing that, or there should be some laws and some regulations that are further kind of put into place. And there should be a lot of research and who's doing the research about the watershed, and are they connected? I mean, there's a lot of different challenges that are within that. But one thing I will say with certainty is we use too much plastic, and we need to come up with better solutions for that.
I totally agree with that. I think, it's kind of like almost like an oxymoron putting water in plastic, and we're actually like polluting all our oceans. So when I come to think of it, it's just like kind of like, what are we doing? Like at the end of the day, but, again, to our point, convenience sells, and, it's whether positive or negative, you realize how much convenience is an importance whenever it comes to a product. So, that also brings us to the next point of like, the Canadian tech industry overall. How do you feel like the future of clean tech startups are going to benefit from like our Canadian ecosystem as it continues to grow?
Yeah, I think, well, the first time we're in a season right now, which is quite exciting. We look at some of the activity that's happened in the South with the election and the new budget that's happened for climate resiliency.
Yep.
That's exciting. We look at Canada and some of the climate financing plans that are in place with the current government, which is exciting to see. And we look at really kind of the future of people bouncing back from the pandemic. There's this huge focus on net zero. There's a large focus on I'm forgetting build back better, and so people are putting a lot more emphasis on the environment and climate. And so I think for startups, it's a good place to be in Canada. You talk to the US and they say the government just supports their startup organizations so much more. And I really do feel that support, particularly, the accelerators that we're a part of and our supports there. But I think as far as startups, it's a hard place to be, but I think it's a really promising time for climate startups. And, for us, water tech, it's an old school industry, and we're seeing some really promising technological advances happening, even with the caliber of startups that are here in Canada and the support. So as a startup, I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. Canada is an awesome place to start a business.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. And so what would be like the number one piece of advice you can give like future or current clean tech startups in terms of, developing some sales or just navigating, the industry as it is today?
It's a good question. I think there's like a lot of things that come to mind. For anyone that's like very, very new and maybe is thinking about getting into climate tech or, water tech, the first thing I would say is just do it, because it's never going to make sense to you until you actually do it.
Right.
I quit my job 18 months ago and I was so stressed about it. I still remember being like, am I making a big mistake? Maybe I should just try to do both at the same time. I told my boss, I walked into his office and I said, I'm quitting because I'm starting this company and I'm going to do it. And he said, that's one of the most stupid things I've ever heard. Are you sure you want to do that? And just keep your job and you can do this part-time. And I said, no. And I stood my ground. And as soon as I walked out, I was like, did I make a really bad mistake? But, I have to say, I haven't really looked back. It's been one of the best decisions I've ever made. Right. So for anyone that's thinking about doing it, just do it. You'll figure it out. When you're in a really uncomfortable situation, you don't really know where cash flow is coming from, you figure it out. And the other thing I would say is something that we've really learned through the process is constantly talk to people. Like, there has been incredible value just talking to people and ask people questions. Don't be an expert. No one's an expert in everything. Get the support you need. Accelerators, keep on asking them. Get them to help you and to work for you. That's what they're there for. You might not see a grant that's there, but it's through continued badgering and questions and being involved. And so they think of you every time there's an opportunity. I think sometimes startups, they don't take advantage of accelerators like they should. And so I would say for existing climate tech or new tech that's coming out, just do it. Get in there, be first in line, and that you're constantly badgering them. And I would say, as far as sales go, talk to people early. Start talking to developers, understand what their needs are, so you can potentially refine your product so that it meets their needs before it's out. So you don't have to go back and make mistakes and try to refine it after the fact. But all in all, there's a lot of opportunity. There's so many good ideas out there, and we just need more people to do it.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I love that story as well. Like, Amin and I, obviously, outside of this podcast, we are working. But if we could choose, we wouldn't want to be. So to hear things like that, it's very inspiring. And also, you're tackling a huge issue. It's not like you just, it's not like you just walked out of your job like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, you're trying to tackle a huge issue here. So I think that's incredibly inspirational, and it's brought you to where you are today. And that's what I wanted to kind of get at right now. It looks like RainStick is preparing to launch later this year. So can you provide some insights on what we can expect this year and what that's looking like?
Yeah, totally. So we're getting ready We're going through some product refinement right now. We're going to be launching later this year. We're announcing pricing for RainStick over the next couple of months. So you can check out RainStickShower.com. We've launched some social channels as well. Instagram, we're now on there. Facebook, so check that out. We are actually going to be launching RainStick right on our e-commerce platform. And so at the beginning, we're not going through any retailers. We're doing it all from e-commerce. So D2C, we see this as the future. A lot of people are using e-commerce. We want to be there. We want to do it right. We want to do it well. And we want to make it easy to be able to ship the product. So we're starting there. A lot of our information will be on our website. So I would say, yeah, check out our website. We are going to be, our first installations are going to be with an early adopter market. And so in short, we're going to be announcing some details on our website over the next couple months regarding how people can get on that early adopter list. And then through that, we'll be working with you installing. There's be some cool opportunities that are through that. And then following that, early 2022, we'll do a more formalized rollout of RainStick.
I love it. A lot of secrecy, but still a little bit of details there. But I'm looking forward to this. We love to hear your story of the business as well, but we want to know a little bit more about yourself. And so we have a lightning round where we kind of just toss some quick questions at you just to get to know you a bit better.
All right, let's go.
So first off, so you're working on RainStick development and figuring everything out. You're having a long day. How do you like to unwind?
I like to play the guitar.
Nice. We have a musician here too.
Oh.
Not me. I'm talking about yourself.
Yeah, no, not me.
Here too. Yeah, you.
No.
Tell me more.
Solving world problems and creating music. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have my guitar right there. Just
cool.
Things get stressful. You have a little bit of a time or a little bit of time between meetings. I just bring it out.
For sure.
Yeah, the best I can do is play "Mary Had a Little Lamb" on a recorder. So
I need that's good. You gotta be proud of that.
Yeah.
Oh man, if you can pick one person, dead or alive, to have dinner with, who would that be?
Today, such a good question. There's so many people. Bill Gates, because there's a lot of really interesting things he's coming out with, and I do agree with a lot of the things that he's saying these days.
Sweet.
One of the questions that we like to ask our guests tends to be a little controversial. Nothing to do with water pricing, but I will ask you, do you like pineapple on your pizza?
Oh, I do. I love
it.
I love
it. I love it.
She broke our streak. She broke the streak.
I'm all for pineapple. Amin hates it. And like the last 5 or 6 guests we've had on just keep like trashing on me.
I was just on a roll. Just having those and...
It brings a little bit of sweetness to it.
Exactly. You tell him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. And lastly here, can you tell me like maybe one company that you're more excited about, like you're keeping your eyes on? It can be tech industry, clean tech, anything like that. Who are you looking at? Nexi.
So they're a modular construction company. I think they're doing some really cool things. They're starting with commercial, but they're moving to residential. I think there's huge promise for their tech. So very cool.
Awesome.
Keep some eyes on that one.
Yeah.
Love it. I love it. Alisha, thank you so much. I think you're doing incredible work with your business, and we're looking forward to kind of seeing the launch this year. And I was being serious. If I can be an early adopter, I'm signing up on that list. So hopefully we'll stay connected from here. So thank you so much.